Hi, I'm the PC Expert Amateur, and this is the fan episode. Yeah, exciting. Are you a fan? I hope you are. Please like and subscribe and share my videos so that we can get a nice big family going here. That would be super. And so this one, I'm going to be installing just regular non-RGB fans or non-ARGB too. However, I will demonstrate how to connect your ARGB fans to the computer and how to install your RGB fans to the motherboard as well. But I won't be using those kind of fans in here. The only fans that will have lights will be the fans going in this area here. They will have a red lights. There's no color variation in them. Yeah, because they actually match the power connectors for the switches that control the speed, so that works just fine. The other three positions here and here and here are all going to be just non-LED fans. Now, the first step that I have to do is, as you can see, the top is blocked off, so I have to take these top covers off, and there's an well, turn it. There we go. All right. Welcome back. And these are actually very nice because just like the back panel, they have got insulation on them. Actually, even the front door has insulation on them to reduce noise. And it's some kind of a synthetic fiber that's mounted on there. And they've got these peg things so that you can actually plug these into the holes in the top here. And they nest against each other like this. So that's pretty cool. All right, so the fans. Let's start with the top ones because that means I don't have to move right away. Now, for the first part, it's all just going to be physical. I'm not going to be connecting cables. I'm just going to be installing the fans up here. So I don't need my static electricity or anti-static wristband. And I will be installing Antec P12s. How do I know it's P12? Because it says P12 right there. That's the only place. They use the same boxing for all of their fans. It helps to save money, which means, and in the case of Antec, they actually pass the savings on to you and me. Now, one of the things that's important about the motherboard is to know where your channel fan headers or CHA underscore fan, and then there's usually a number after that, are located. For the CPU fans, it's up on top of the motherboard, and the pump will also usually be on top, but sometimes the pump will be in the middle depending on the motherboard. Like my motherboard has the pump header in the middle, the two CPU headers on top. There's also a channel header in the middle, and all the other channel fan headers are along here. So this is the P12. It's very, very inexpensive and thus not high quality, but it's a good fan. And for what I paid, which I think I paid like maybe $6, $7 a fan, it is incredibly good. So let's go ahead and get these installed. I've got my fan screws ready. Oops. One of my screws found a hole in the bag. So I'll have to grab that one. And off to the races. Now, again, you want to pay attention to the orientation of the fan. Again, most fans blow from the convex side. No, concave side. Concave. Cave like cave. So you look for the scoop, like a spoon, and that's the side that is pushing the air. So when you install on the back, you're going to want to have it pushing out, because in most situations, airflow goes from the front to the back and up. But if you have fans down here, you can actually design it so that the air goes that way using convection current to help the fans. You can do it in a lot of other ways as well. You can have one fan sucking and the other fan out, and the other hand sucking in. So one can be an exhaust, the other can be an intake. However you think is going to be best. But I would suggest install them, turn on your computer, run something that really challenges your computer. Get one of the benchmarking programs out there. There's 3D Mark. There's Unigine has got Superposition, which is the newest one, but you could just get one of the older ones as well, which are Heaven and Valley. And there are a whole bunch of other ones that will ramp up the temperature of your fan, your CPU and your GPU, and you'll be able to determine by what shows on screen from your graphics card or your graphics drivers, if you're using the included or the integrated graphics processor in your CPU, how hot it gets, and then you can try experimenting with positions and direction of flow for each fan and find out which is the best. Now, normally a lot of people will do intake on the front, exhaust on the back, and then exhaust on top. Now, in this case, the intake fans are, I don't believe, are as strong as my Antec fans are. So I'm actually going to want to probably have one of the two top ones, probably the front one, be an intake fan as well to help compensate, which means I'll want to use the magnetic mesh to help filter that and at least cover up that side and leave the other side uncovered, because you don't need to have a barrier for exhaust fans to deal with dust, because then the dust will be trapped inside of the case. So we'll start with the back here. And again, this is the concave side. So this is the side that we want to have connected to the back of the case, like so. And then as far as like the cabling, if you don't care about cabling, then it doesn't really matter how you install it, but I would suggest that you want to have it run either directly to the header, or have it run around behind the through one of the holes up here, and then come out where the header is. So I'm going to look at this for a second and see which way I want to do it. What I'm probably going to do is, just to make it easier on myself, is I'm going to use a splitter, and then I'm going to attach this fan and this fan so they can act in concert. And I'm going to plug them into the channel fan header 1 right back in there, which is going to be a little bit awkward, I must admit. But when you have both exhaust fans working together, it can be beneficial. All right, so you want to look at the header of the cabling. Most of the time you're going to be using standard PWM. Unfortunately, more and more fan companies are opting to move to non-standard headers, primarily for the LEDs. So most fan companies will be using two separate cables if you buy an LED fan that has RGB or ARGB capability. The fan power will be provided by a PWM connector like this, or maybe a 3-pin it'll be like that wide instead of this wide, and it'll only have 3 holes instead of 4. And so the first two are ground and the voltage, and then the third one is the tachometer signal, and then the fourth one is the pulse wave modulation that controls the fan speed through pulsing the I think it pulses the voltage, but I don't remember for sure. It isn't actually terribly important. And then when you're going to be connecting fans to a splitter like this one, you'll see that this particular splitter has got 3 heads on it, or sockets on it, and you'll notice that this one has 4 pins, but these only have 3 pins. And the reason for that is that these 2 are going to do whatever this one is told to do. So because this is the first connector, whichever one is the first connector is controlling anything else that's piggy-tailed onto the back of it. So you don't need all 4 pins or all 4 wires on these 2. You just need 3 of them. And that is the PWM and the voltage and the ground. So let's go ahead and get the splitter attached. All right, so first of all, I'm going to connect this PWM head to the header in there. And again, there are some companies that don't use PWM. They'll use a JST connector that's got 5, 6, or more wires. So it's all fan and LEDs combined. And that means you have to have a special hub to run those fans. If you don't have that special hub, and you buy the wrong one, you can actually damage the hub and or the fans if they don't have the same wiring. So you look at the 2 ridges sticking out, and you look at where the tab is on the header, and you match them up and plug it in. And there we go. It's all installed. Not too terribly bad. It only took me, what, 5 minutes to get that one installed? And again, if I had wanted to, and what I would suggest you do is you get that if you're going to use that middle one there, make sure to install the cabling ahead of time if you can, if you're going to use a splitter like this. If I didn't have a splitter, then I would have had to wait it until the fan was installed, and then I could attach it to the motherboard, this is emulating that experience where you aren't using a splitter or extension or LNA, low noise adapter. So now we can go ahead and we can connect this fan. Now, most fans come with screws, and they are self-tapping, so they will bite into the plastic and hold the fan in very nice and tightly. You don't want to tighten up the screws all the way, as always. And ideally, you want to put in screws at kitty corners, which helps to ensure that the other 2 screws will not have a problem being connected to the holes. I'm being screwed into the holes. Another thing that makes this screwdriver better than LTT's screwdriver, I've got this. So I can spin this with my fingers against my palm so I can apply pressure and do this. Another thing that Linus forgot. So I suggest that you try to align the fans fairly closely to the heat sinks so that this fan is going to be sucking out as much of that hot air from here as possible. The rest of the hot air will be caught by the rear fan here. Now that I've got all 4 screws in, I can tighten them up. Once I've got the fan in the position I want it to be in. Do not over tighten. It is possible for you to crack the plastic around the holes of the fan. There. So I'm going to go ahead and do this the easy way. And always have a light source. It is so useful when you get to this point. So again, you're going to match up the ridges to the slot and tabs. There we go, just like that. Can you see that? See how that fits together nicely? All right, now we'll go ahead and install our exhaust fan on top, which will be a little bit more challenging because the CPU cooler is in the way. But I'm telling you right now, with this case, I did try with the previously to see if the motherboard could be installed after the fans were installed, and it's possible without the CPU cooler installed, but it's very difficult. And with the CPU cooler installed, it's pretty much impossible. This particular case would allow me to install 140 millimeter fans, but I don't have enough 140 millimeter fans, so I'm just using 120s. If you want your case to be quieter, more fans is going to make it quieter. Also, 140s are going to be quieter and push more air than 120s. And do not tighten up these screws until you get all the fans in that same area installed. And now finally, for the last top one, this one is going to be intaking air, so I'm going to have the concave side of the blades facing downwards, so the label is going to be facing upwards. Now on this particular fan, they put the very similar things on both sides, and they did not provide information about the rated voltage and amperage and wattage on here at all. Or a model number or anything. The only thing that's on here is actually a physically stamped in date of manufacture, which was, let's see, July 6th, 2022. All right, let's go ahead and finish this up. So another problem with the clearance of this case, and one of the reasons I don't like building in smaller cases, is that with this motherboard in particular, the VRM is high, but then they've got this layered plastic covering over it, which makes it even higher and sticks out more in that direction. And as a consequence, I can't actually pull this fan all the way back like I would want to, because it's hitting that plastic cover for the VRM right over in this area here, which is very frustrating because I've shifted this forward as much as I can, and I can't get it into the space. I've dropped this off to make more space. There's still it's just shy of quite enough space to be able to slide this into this position. So at this point, I could have one of three options. I can force it in there, which will probably end up damaging the CPU cooler and maybe the motherboard as well. I can uninstall this fan and push it forward and then install it in here, which means I have to take it out and flip it. Or I can just remove the optical drive and then reinstall it. And I think what I'm going to do is just the easiest solution is going to be the optical drive. So I'm going to go with that. But do not force the fan up there. If you can't get it in without it touching the CPU cooler and other objects, you don't want to force it because you're going to break something, which could include the fan, which is not a big deal because fans in general are $5 to $35, and then you get the crazy fans where people are asking for like $100 and something per fan, and that's just stupid. You should never pay that much for a fan unless it can do all kinds of magic tricks. So let me go ahead and deal with the naughty optical drive because of the naughtier VRM cover. Now you're thinking, boy, you don't know very much about putting together computers, and the truth is if you watch even people like Linus, Sebastian, and Jay at Jay's 2 Cents and these other guys, there are so many varieties when it comes to the parts that go in the case, much less the case itself, that you can never know for 100% certain whether you're going to have the order down correctly because of all those variables. Unless you're setting up the same configuration over and over and over again. And then by the second time you've done it, you're going to be like, well, I know the best order to do this. But otherwise, there's just too much variety. So even the pros, most of them are going to have the same problems that I'm having of not knowing exactly what the perfect order is for getting this stuff installed. So, yeah. I'm going to leave this down just in case because I don't want to have any more further hassles. So let's go ahead and get this one installed. And hopefully the problem with the fan butting up against the VRM cover isn't going to be a problem. One important thing, don't push against the fan blades. Only push against the frame and the hub. So now I'm just tightening up all of the fan screws because I've got them placed where they need to be. And now I can reattach the front CPU cooler fan, which is always so much fun. Okay, hold on. It's awkward. All right, I spared you the boring part of watching me struggle for another 5 hours to get that one on. No, not really. It just I decided to, instead of having it come out have the cable come out the top, I've got the cable running behind, and it's a little bit down below there, so it's not really visible, unlike this one, which actually works out really nicely. And I did want to point out that if you look here, you'll see that there's a gap between this fan and this cool tower. which is both good and bad. It's bad because that's an air gap from which hot air can escape. It's good, however, because now you have a certain number of extra millimeters of space that you can use to install a thicker or wider fan here instead of this. So you could find out what the thickness is. And that looks to be exactly 3 centimeters or 30 millimeters. Sorry, I'm still not good at metric. And that's good because that allows you to put in, say, a Fantex T30 or any other fan that is 30 millimeters wide, and you could put another Fantex T30 over here, and that way this cooler would become that much more powerful and efficient at dissipating heat. So that's really good, actually. There are some air coolers out there that don't have that extra space. Now, if you're not going to replace it, what you could do is you could get a gasket that fills up this space here all the way around so that the air can't escape. But you still, because the sides of the Peerless Assassin are not blocked off, you still are going to have heat escaping, or the hot wind is going to be escaping out of here and out of here. All these empty spaces where the air can escape, it's going to try. But at least if you have a strong fan on here and here, that'll be less of a problem. It's a plus minus kind of situation. Every cooler has pluses and minuses. So now I'm going to get that reinstalled if I can. Okay, so I've got everything back in place now, and I reoriented the power cable for the optical drive because it's kind of going to be in the way of the main power cable that plugs in over here, and I didn't want that to happen, so I just took care of that while I was at it. It's still going to be a little bit awkward, but much more doable this way. So now we've got the two fans here. We've got the one fan here. We now have to proceed to install the two fans over here. And these are the Yeyian Typhoon Reds that I'm going to be installing in the front. And they will be intaking air. So there's the concave side, so they're going to be facing this way, and you're not going to see the cabling. Before I do that, however, I wanted to point out I have not used the third connector on this splitter, and there is a very good reason for that, and that is because this is for the exhaust fans. It is not for the intake fan, so I'm going to attach the intake fan here to a separate header. So before I moved the optical drive back in place, I had to move the cable from this fan up here out of the way because they're butting up against each other. And so I've got it actually, the cable's actually behind the optical drive here, and I put it through the cable through the hole over here, and now I'm bringing it out through here. And there's a fan header right over here on the right-hand side, and I'm plugging it in there. that's one thing that he did pretty well. All right. So that's looking pretty good. So let me reposition the case so that we can install the fans here. Okay, so I wanted to show you inside the front here. If I can. Oh, I almost hit you with the door. Jeez, don't let the door hit you on the way out. Now, this door also has the same fabric lining to reduce noise, and the ventilation is actually for the fans is actually on the two sides over here, starting at about this high, which you can't actually see. Hold on, let me show you. See that? And the same on this side. And all right, so you can see the switches are off the screen again. Are down here. In order to install the fans, I need to remove this grill, which has the dust filter built into it. And now I can start installing. And it's the same procedure as before as far as installing the screws, putting them in slightly loose first and then adjust the positioning and then tighten them all up, and then you can do the cabling. So I'm going to skip it so you don't have to watch that whole thing all over again. It's the same procedure. You know, I almost forgot something. Like I said, these fans have got LEDs running around here. If you don't want those LEDs to work, you can do one of two things. You see that little silver cable right there? That's for the LEDs. You can snip that so that the LEDs get no power whatsoever. That means that this will actually be a bit stronger because it'll get all the power coming from the cable. Or you can install a switch there by snipping it and then wiring in a switch so that you can change the speeds. But you know, since you've got the switches on the case from this one, I don't need to do that. But if you don't have that option, you can either cut it or you can add a switch. Okay, so it's they're installed now, and all I gotta do is put the grill back in place to keep dust out. Now, I wanted to explain the reason why I did the extra intake fan, and that was because you, if you have air going out faster than air can go in, then the air is going to find every hole it can go through to bypass any barriers, and that means dust is going to get in through those other points in your case. Whereas if you have more fans pushing air in than are pushing air out, you're going to have the opposite effect, where excess air is going to be pushing its way out of every hole it possibly can find, and you won't get a lot of dust in. So you always want to find that balance. So there are specific cases where what's called negative air pressure, where there's more exhaust than there is intake, is the best choice. But most cases are designed to be positive air pressure, where there's more air coming in than going out. If you do have a negative pressure situation, it is very important to keep an eye on the dustiness, especially of things like the CPU cooler and the graphics card, to make sure that you clean off any dust buildup. Otherwise, things can overheat, and that can be bad. So we're basically done here, and I just wanted to point out these are the switches for the fan speed. And according to the lettering that's on the top and bottom, if you push the fan switches up, it goes to a lower speed. If you push the fan switches down, it goes to medium and high speed. So it's low, medium, high, not off. You may be wondering what I did with the cables for this fan and this fan. And what I did is I tied them up with a cable tie, and I tucked them up here above the back fan so that they're out of the way and they're not an eyesore. Okay, so we have two choices for connecting these fans because the cables come with both a 3-pin connector and a Molex connector. The Molex connector, although it shows you can see 4 pins in there and 4 pins on that side and 4 holes on this side. You could just go ahead and daisy chain all these together like this, along with this one here. This one is actually to power all the fans, and that's why it says fan controller power. And so that is one way you could do it. You could just connect them in line like this, and then connect the power supply Molex cable to here and to the power supply, and they would be powered that way. The other way, however, is to do it this way. And the reason they have both these connectors on here isn't so that you can have both power sources. It's so that you can use this on in different situations. So you can either have it connected to the controller of a hub, or you can have it connected directly to the power supply. And in this case, since there are switches over here, it doesn't matter which way you do it particularly. All you got to do is make sure that the top fan is connected to fan 1 switch, and the bottom fan is connected to the fan 2 switch. And that's as simple as it gets. This one is this is the top fan. So this is going to be connected to one of the fan 1 connectors. It doesn't really matter which one, as long as you check and see if one of them has 3 pins. Let's see, those don't have 3 pins, and those don't have 3 pins. So yeah, it doesn't matter with this particular case which one you use. Just plug it into one of the fan ones. And just ignore that, because you don't need 2 power sources. And then you do the same thing with this one. This is the bottom fan, so this is going to be fan 2. And you want to plug it into a different, well, I guess it doesn't really matter. You can plug it into the same cable, over here. These are separated, but it doesn't actually make a difference. So then all that's left is to tidy this up and connect this to the power supply. And in order to do that, we need a Molex to power supply cable, which I have right here. So this is the power supply side. It says periph, and that'll be connected to the peripheral port on the power supply that I have. And these are the headers, or not headers, the plugs to connect to the power supply. So we'll ignore this, and we'll ignore this. We'll grab this one. It's a little bit awkward. This is one of the things I hate about Molex, is it can be challenging to put them together. So that's that. And then we're just going to have to connect that to the power supply after I get that installed. And then we just need to tidy this up. So I'm going to get a cable tie. Got a nice black one. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I'm tired of black, white, and beige cases. When I was young, every case was beige and or gray, and now it's all black and white. I'm like, and it drives me nuts. I mean, it doesn't matter in the end because I'm not going to be looking at my case most of the time, but I just would like it very much if there were more color options. So if you're out there and you're a sticker company, you should be listening to this and figuring out how you can create stickers for cases so that there are other colors. Otherwise, if you're a person who wants to have your case with your own choice of color or colors, be artistic and color your case and get stickers, get spray paint, get oil-based paint, well, you know, whatever you want to do, and make it look interesting. There's a video on Linus Tech Tips where he brought in a lady who took a case and made it look like a high-rise apartment building with stores at the bottom and stuff. It was really pretty cool. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and tidy this up as best as I can. And I do already have a cable tie over here that's waiting for that purpose. But I just want to do the initial tidying up so that this part up here is not a big mess like this, and this is not a big mess. So I'm just going to take it and we'll go like this. And now that is, oops, I missed one. Okay. Get back in there. No more escaping. But let me out, let me out. Nope, you are my prisoner now. Oh, I want to be in the loop. Well, you are in the loop. You're trapped in the loop. All right, so that's good enough for now. It's all nice and tied up like that. Sorry. So you can see that's nice and neat. And yeah, so let's conclude this video now. And thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.